my co-host. I always forget which one I'm on, if it's StreamYard or Zoom.
The thing is, it will look right now, but in the recording, it's still the opposite way.
Oh, so right, you're right. So okay, let's do it again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kashay, and you are watching Shay with the Hobbies. This is episode 3 of season 2 of Writerly Conversations. It is March. We had an amazing Black History Month. The Missy Elliott Readathon inaugural year is complete. Thank you to everyone who joined us, who used all the graphics, who came to all the sprints, who was there for the movie night. Like, we just appreciate all you guys. For myself, I know Brenda will say her thank yous, but Dejan, I know she's not here. But like, yeah, we just all are like, we had a great time and we appreciate y'all so much. So I will let my co-host introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Britt. My channel is Britt Writerly. It's a book and author too, where I talk about the intersections of literature and culture, ABC 1, 2, 3, everything that comes into that. If that sounds interesting, definitely go check it out. Absolutely, like Shay said, doing the Missy Elliott Readathon was a whole total blast. It's exciting. I can't wait to see what we whip up next year. Can't wait. But thank everyone who came to the Friday reading sprints, Get Your Read On edition. Thank you for tagging us in every post, for making my Instagram stories a super boppy place with all of your different updates. It was amazing. Special shout out to Nicole, was on it. Nicole was on it. It has to be said. Nicole was on it. She did the Missy Elliott Readathon. She did the For the Culture Readathon. Like, she just really participated. Made her own graphics. Other people were using her graphics too to give updates and do the rating review. Like, just super appreciate your support, Nicole. So thank you very much. Super appreciate all that jazz. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, y'all. So last month we talked about what is the fantasy that it comes with writing, right? And part of that conversation, we talked about how we wonder if the stories that get put out are the stories that the writers wrote, or the stories that the writers had to allow to be put out into the world in order to get their stories out. And so further conversation between us and scrolling through Twitter and reading all the bookish conversations, we came across a thread. We being Brit came across the thread and sent it my way, and then we discussed it. And which we the conversation kind of came up on, what does it mean to give up or to not give up as a writer? What does that look like? What does that entail? And can it be toxic to tell people to not give up? Or is that like, nah, you should never give up. Always follow your dreams. Like, what are our thoughts about that? And so your girl's kind of like, I don't know how to lead this conversation. I'm already like stumbling over my words. So this is the time I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to my co-host, and we're gonna do what we do and converse.
Amen.
Amen.
So I came across it in we'll link the thread in the description box. It was it totally speaks for itself. It was like a thread of 7 different tweets, hundreds of likes, there were retweets, comments, but basically the young woman was saying, if her I'll just read the first one because that really sets it up. TBH, if my YA contemporary fantasy doesn't get an agent, I'm giving up on this dream for a while. It's been an arduous process for me, drafting 4 books in 3 years and flinging all of them into the trenches with brimming hope, only to have them shattered. And so then she says, I think it's absolutely valid to tell someone to rest sometimes. When I tell you it's frustrating frustrating to hear don't give up all the time. It's not easy pouring your heart and your soul into a story only to have it rejected time and again. And so that's sort of the nature of the tweet. When I read this, I was just like, we see each other, because I have been working on #FirstFantasy. I wrote the book when I'm 16 years old. I am 26. And hearing never give up, and I have heard never give up from friends. I have heard never give up from published authors who are like, I believe in you. And that does, like, hearing a published author say they believe in me lights up my soul. It really does. But the never give up though, like, never, or don't make it your first thing, because there are some circumstances in which a tactical retreat is called for, because I definitely have had moments where I feel like if I don't move on from #FirstFantasy, I will begin to have a negative relationship to my creative writing, and I'm not willing to risk that. I already have a very complicated relationship with my academic writing. I second guess myself all the time on it, and not because I'm incompetent, because of bad experiences I've had in grad school and with professors. I don't want to do that. I don't want to risk that in my creative writing. And so if it feels like I'm getting all these rejections and no one wants to mess with my story, and the conventions of publishing say that stories can't be told this way, I do think that it's healthy and wise to say, now is not the time. So I'm a head out. And I really respect this tweeter for putting that out there and being like, yeah, I'm gonna head out if this don't work out, because I've absolutely felt that way, and not always felt, not, I haven't felt comfortable saying it. I have said it, and then I say it, people are like, would never give up, right? So it does get toxic because it doesn't take into account the emotional labor of writing a story. For 3 stories in 4 years, that is crazy. That is madness. And then to throw it into the trenches and have it all be rejected, I couldn't tell that person never to give up, honestly. Like, that's me. Shay, I don't know if you have thoughts.
I was so when you were reading it back, I also was like, I feel like you don't, and this is no disrespect to the tutor or anything, but I feel like you don't have great writer friends or CPs, because here's the truth of the matter for me. There's no way I would tell my CP to query 4 different books in 3 years. Like, the time that it takes you to write a good quality book and edit it and get it ready to query and get it ready to an agent, like 2.5 in 3 years, sure. 4, that means you spent less than a year on each book. That's not anything that I would encourage my CPs to do, because I know how bad rejection can be. So to me, you are setting yourself up for a bunch of rejection, because you get a few rejections and it's like, well, this story wasn't good. Let me start working on a brand new story and do that. Is the connotation I get from 4 brand new books in 3 years, is the connotation that I get. To get to the point where you were comfortable querying all 4 books. And I know people who've written that many books in that time, but queried all of them is a completely different thing.
I can't imagine.
I couldn't imagine doing that. Like,
I cannot imagine. And I don't know if she has critique partners. She didn't say.
Right.
But
like, and I think that I feel like, but as you were reading it, I was thinking about like different ways in which, like, how would I avoid being in a situation like this? How would I avoid myself feeling like this person feels in this tweet, like, if I could, right? And it would be that, like, one, I think that people don't realize everything you write is not queryable. And I feel like that only to say this, because I think it goes into a couple of our other points of people being like, you know, I worked on this book for 10 years, or, you know, I queried this many agents on this story. Sometimes it is the story in those situations, not all the time, but it is. So I don't think, one, everything that I write, I know I'm not willing to put in the hands of an agent. So I know that's my like first thing. Two, I think another way to avoid this is to not look at traditional publishing as the only way. I feel like when you look at this as the only way, not getting this makes you think that you have no value or your stories have no value, when it's like traditional publishing isn't the only way to tell stories, right? So I think that not to say that there isn't like rejection doesn't come or all these things don't happen, because I know we're going to talk about it and get into that, but also that I think that what I wish I saw more of, and I hope that people watch this video get to see, I wish I saw people who were in this current stage of writing talking about their mindset going into it, right? Because if the conversation was more like, hey, my mindset is, this is a goal, this is something I'm aiming for, but I also know once I feel like the story is where it is and where it can't go any more, and I put X amount of time into trying to get it queried and it didn't work, I'm willing to switch over to the indie publishing lane, or I'm willing to look at indie publishers who are not big five, but they are still publishing books and they're still willing to do advances. Like there are other avenues other than these things that we're so used to being told are the only way to get there. And so I say that just as like remembering conversations me and Britt have had about querying and like, dang, I wish somebody talked about this. Like, I wish somebody talked about like what they thought about in this time. And I like going into it, I'm thinking, do not tie my worth into someone saying no.
Yeah. And I think, because I mean, like Shay said when we started the video, we talked in episode 2 about the fantasies of writing, even if you're not writing fantasy, right? Whenever you write something that, unless it's nonfiction, there's some fiction behind it. And sometimes the way that we produce people and relationships, it's not even fiction, it's really fantasy, right? So we talked about what fantasies may be driving writers. And I think this conversation is sort of about like the mythology of getting published, because we hear these like epic heroic tales of people who never gave up and were in the query trenches for 10 years and queried hundreds of agents. And I'm over here like, I'm trying to look high and low for a solid 25. Like, where are you finding hundreds of agents at that actually match your book? So I think part of the mythology is, and this is not really, I'm not even saying this on the onus of the authors who are sharing their journey, right? We look at social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, TikTok, whatever, and we really forget that it is a medium. It is a mediation of someone's words. They can only say so much through this medium. This is not everything. This is a vantage point. This is one perspective. This is one tidbit of their story. If you were sitting down with them over coffee, they would tell you a lot more, but they're not. So they put this out there, right? In 280 characters or in a thread if they choose, or in the 60-second reel or whatever. Like, it's not everything. But we take these little bits of everything and make mythologies out of them. Now, oh, these people whose book I love, they were writing for 10 years. Right, but that 10 years was a winding road, not a straight shot. Like, I don't think that anyone who is saying that they've been working on their book for 10 years is saying that from the moment they had that idea to the moment they got an agent, they did nothing but work on that book. They picked it up, they put it down, they picked it up, they put it down, they put it down, they put it down, they had a dream, they picked it up. Like, it was a wind, they were living their life. They were living their life. They were pursuing other dreams. They were furthering their career. They were starting families, bettering themselves. Like, but we see this 10 years hundreds of rejections, and we take it as if it's been some epic fantasy where for 10 years they have been like fighting this beast of trad pub. And that's not really it. It's not for me. My 10-year story is not have been working on #First Fantasy for 10 years straight. I put it down for years at a time and just picked it up again 2 years ago after having put it down for like a year and a half before that. So like, I think part of the exhaustion and part of the toxicity that can come in with the never give up narrative is that the never give up is based on a mythology a mythology that some other author never gave up. When in reality, stepping away is a healthy part of any pursuit, whether you're pursuing school or relationships or this publishing thing. Stepping away is healthy. You need time to assess and adjust. That's just what it is. But we don't really see that getting said as much.
Right. I mean, there's a reason we have a spring break, a fall break, a summer break. Like, you need time away. And I think that's the other part is like, I've been writing for 10 years, but it wasn't your full-time job. You weren't putting 40 hours a week to this. You weren't studying and trying to hone your craft this entire time, right? Because we also know that's a different thing. Trying to just write a story and then reading and learning to be a better writer and trying to write this story are two different things.
Different.
A lot of us start out just writing because we have that dream, we have that idea, we have that story. We don't know as well all the mechanics of writing, and not even just like, you can have an English degree, you can, that can be a thing. It's still something different about studying the craft that is telling a story. That's way different from just getting grammar right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like that, like, those are the parts that I feel like we just don't talk about enough. Yeah. Because and again, like, that changing that mindset, changing that perception makes it so that we don't feel as negative, right? Not that you don't feel negativity, not that there isn't gonna be negative sides to this journey, but just that you're able to handle them better and you're more aware of how to maneuver through them because you've already thought, and you know what I mean? You've already thought and taken into consideration these things. Like, I think about what you were saying about like, you can't even find 25. Like, the number of conversations that I've seen of people just querying an agent because they're open to queries. So when you get that rejection, but that person does romance and you write horror, had you done the work that you needed to do, you wouldn't have got that rejection that hurt your feelings, right? Because it shouldn't hurt your feelings, because they were never going to say yes, because this isn't what they push. That's not a you thing, that's just a fact thing.
Right.
But then here we are internalizing these no's that were always gonna be no's, right? Like, it's like those aren't, that has nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do with your writing, right?
Right. And that just takes time. Like, it takes time to learn that throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks is not, like, few and far between the people who got an agent that way. And they are definitely getting less and less now.
Right. Except now, we're having videos like this where we're telling you don't do that.
Don't do that.
Right? Because I didn't see videos that said not to do that. Right? I saw
Lizelle and that was it.
Right. Lizelle was the first person I saw that said that. But when I was like, oh, I'm looking into querying, no video I saw at that time, this is before I knew Lizelle existed, said that. Like, nobody said nothing. The closest thing I heard was research your agents. Nobody explained what that meant. Nobody explained how to do that. Nobody explained how you know this one is a good fit for you or not. And it's like, that's why I want to have these conversations, so that somebody can find this video and be like, oh, wow, nope, someone did say that. I did get to hear that. And you didn't have to make the mistake of throwing stuff against the wall to figure it out.
Because it is trying on your spirit to have someone look at the work that you've done and say no. And I think the other thing is, and Shay already said it, but just to, like, massage the point, I think there's never give up. And then I think there really is, how do you want to get there? Right? Like, what is I think that saying never give up on an avenue is toxic. And I think saying never, but I think that's not the same thing as saying never give up on a dream. You can say keep the dream and say, but you can't always get there the way you thought you were going to get there. Perfect example. I think I already sent it to Shay, but if I didn't, I'll send it to her so she can put it in the description. There was this guy on TikTok, and he was talking about rejections as directions. And he was saying essentially, if that thing is not working out for you, it's God doesn't want you to go down that way. If those people who you are trying to start a relationship are rejecting you, rather than internalizing that disappointment, say, if I'm sowing into you and nothing is growing, there is no harvest, that must mean that you're not a part of my destiny. If I needed you to get to my destiny, you would be in my life, but you're not, so you must not be necessary. And so this does not mean give up on your dream, but that just means the door may not open on A Street for you. The door may be around the back on entrance level G through the parking garage. That doesn't mean you're getting less of your dream. That just means it's in a different direction. You're in the entirely different quadrant to even access what God has for you. And so I really did not want, I still like self-pub. When I hear that, all I hear is work, 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 work. Like, self-pubbing is hard. I have nothing but respect for people who are indie publishers, because you are the business. You are putting forward all that front money. You are the one having to network with publishers, with editors, with everything. Like, it is all you. Marketing, it's all you. And I don't really want to do that. So to have a team around me doing that for me is what I want. But maybe God is like, you can have a team around you. You're just going to have to choose them. You're just going to have to find a marketing firm that you want to work with. You're just going to have to find an editor that you rock with for your projects. You're just going to have to find a lawyer that you want to keep on retainer for projects to do your contract law, right? Like, you can still have a team around you in indie. You can. You have to. Like, you're not going to be making new connections every time you put a book out, but it is more work. But it may be that if all of these different agents, like Shay said, there are some stories that she has that she doesn't trust to go through an agent. Doesn't mean she doesn't want them in the world. She just doesn't trust an agent to honor the story, because let's not forget that in the midst of all of these things that writers have to learn, the craft, how to query, how to research, publishing is still a business, and it's still capitalism, and it's still racist as all get out. So in addition to the thing, our own learning curve, there are different glass doors, window doors, and ceilings at play, regardless of what the big four want us to believe about the progress they're making, right? There is still a quota of how many certain kind of stories they want to put out there. So if there's a story that you want to tell that is flouting convention, but not in a way they think is cute, then it may be that you were going to have to be your own midwife to get that book into the world. So the rejections shouldn't be a surprise. On the one hand, if you're doing horror and the agent is doing romance, then their rejection shouldn't be a surprise. But on the other hand, if you are writing a story that you don't see anywhere else, structured in a way you have never seen before, and all the agents are saying, can't relate, I don't see it, but you know this is the story that you needed. You know friends who need this story, then you knew it was going to be a no, not because they're romance and you're a horror, but because you're functioning on a different level than them. And that's fine. So it's not always you didn't do your work. Sometimes the match is not generic. Sometimes the match is political. You're trying to say some things that won't be popular, and there are agents and agencies who don't want to be associated with that. So you're going to have to go your own way. So I think that's another part of the never give up, is some of the stories that aren't getting told that people are getting rejected. They're going to keep getting rejected if you want to go through TradPub. But if you reappropriate all of the energy that you're putting into trying to enter TradPub, into setting yourself up for indie, your story might be in the world a lot faster. And that's something that I've had to come to myself.
Because I feel like for me, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, I feel like there are two types of stories that you query. You query a story that you feel is as best as you can get it, without the help of an agent or editor. or you query a story that you think is the best that it can be. One of those two things, right? Like those that's what I am going to query. That's my plan, right? And if I truly think it's the best that it can be, I'm probably not putting it in the hands of an agent, because the truth of the matter is, when you get an agent and your agent puts your book on submission, somebody's going to edit that book before it gets published. If I thought it was perfect then, something is going to change that perfection in my eyes. I don't care what anyone else says. And that's a thought that I carry with me, because I also think about, like, when JL had the opportunity where you could ask any questions you wanted to ask about the books. And my question was, was there any stories about the hood in the Houston, her neighborhood, that you wanted to put in the stories that you didn't? There was a whole barbershop scene that she said she loved that didn't make it in. I don't know the reasons why. She didn't say the reasons why. I'm not putting any reasons why on there. But I am putting the fact that you wrote a scene that you loved that wasn't in your book. I don't want to make those sacrifices. And I have to choose which stories I'm willing to make those sacrifices on.
Right. Right. And then also, and then again, like Shay and I literally just had this conversation because y'all know I've been like trad pub. I don't have time to do indie. I don't have time. I don't have money. I'm not trying to do it. But the more I think about, because I really am sort of at the place, sort of, I'm looking down the road of being at the place where this tweet is, where it's like, if no one picks up this story, but I'm not like, if no one picks up this story, I'm heading out. It's if no one picks up this story, I'm just gonna step back for a moment, not to stop writing, but to say, all right, let's just close the workshop doors with me inside and go back to work. Let's work on the craft. Let's also start researching some indie things. Like, it's just gonna be, let's investigate another avenue, not to give up on my dream, but to say this may not be the corridor. Because there are several things in trad pub that make me raise my eyebrow or furrow my brow. Like, there are just several things in trad pub that I'm not a fan of, but because I don't really have the time, the know-how, or the resources, I'm willing to charge into the game to like go down that avenue. But if God is saying no, I'm not gonna be like, I know, God, but I don't have, I'm just going to be like, well, God said no, so I don't have X, X, and X, but I'm going to go this way, and he must be about to add it to my portion, and that's it. So I think another part of this never give up is this, like, how are you thinking about it? How are you conceptualizing your journey? Is the dream really the dream, or is the journey your dream? In other words, do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a published writer? Or do you want to be a published writer through trad pub who got their agent through X, X, and X means? Like, do you want this golden narrative, or do you just want the dream? Because I think if the golden narrative is what you want, then yeah, a lot of us are going to be heartbroken, because those aren't, like, again, mythology. Those are not the normal experiences. They get repeated so much because they are singular. That's not most people's experience. So if everyone wants that singular experience, most of us are going to be heartbroken. So then we have to be willing to investigate what else, right? So this never give up doesn't become toxic. It just becomes, okay, well, let's look in a different direction. And all these things should be added unto you. Amen.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, like, when we had our conversations about First Fantasy, and the conversation was like, you were done, and I was like, let's switch to writing something else. Because it wasn't even like a not give up, because it was just I don't dislike the story. I don't think it's a bad story. Do I think that traditional publishing is not gonna like this story? Yeah, I think it's hard for them to wrap their hands around it, right? But we know that the one story that we talked about was a good comp for it. Traditional publishing didn't really wrap their head around that story either. Like, that author went with a smaller indie publisher, right? So we also know that if you are paying good attention, right, and we're again, back to doing your research, you find out like, it makes sense that my trajectory is going this way because these authors in which I am trying to write in, like, not mimic they are, but I would like to be in the caliber of writers among them, right? Like, I think about knowing that N.K. Jemisin got her agent with the the duology, but the first thing that was published was the Inheritance trilogy, right? Like, to think that that's the other part of conversations that are not had in this sphere, right? Like, just because that's the one that hooked the agent doesn't mean that's the one that sells, doesn't mean that's the one that first gets published. Like, everything about trad pub and publishing in general, even with self-publishing, is subjective. It's subjective to when it comes out. It's subjective to what people are feeling. And specifically, trad pub is subjective to whatever that one individual it comes across is feeling on that particular day. The one thing I want to be clear for every writer watching this conversation by the end of it is that how that person was feeling on that day when they came across your query is not a reflection on you. You cannot internalize these things. And it's not to say that it's not hard. It's not to say that it is not frustrating. It is not to say that it does not cause you depressive moments. Like, I'm acknowledging that all these things are true. I'm also acknowledging this is where you need to have good CPs and friends in your life. Like, friends in general, but CPs specifically, because with CPs, they are going through this with you. They have an understanding about the writing that's just outside of your best friend wanting you to get your book published because they love you so much. Like, this is not even me just like trying to sell you on anything other than you need writing friends to get through this journey. Like, because it is a very solitary journey. Writing is a very introverted internal process. Is not very many people do that in collaboration, and when they do in collaboration, it's not in the way we're used to thinking of collaboration. Like, a lot of times they send, oh boy, the book, he add his edits in there and then both their names is on the cover. That's not what we're talking about right here. Like, there is some level of connection and community that comes with that I honestly believe the best writers have, and that's what gets them through these times, because they're not easy, right? Like, trying out for these pitch contests and not getting selected, or going through the work and getting a mentor and not getting selected after that, and feeling like you did all this work in this short amount of timeline and not getting, like, there are so many things in this journey that can get you into this feeling that this tweeter had. Right? Like, you want to be done. And it's okay to want to be done. Right? It's perfectly fine. Right? But like Britt was saying, there's a difference between giving up on the dream and giving up on the avenue to get to that dream. Right?
Yeah, because one of the things when Shay and I was talking that she even said to me is, think about your favorite fantasy series, because I love Ayana Gray's Beast of Prey. I love Raybearer and Redemptor. I really, really appreciate the representation that Wings of Ebony, Ashes of Gold give us. However annoying I find Rue on any day of the week, we need her. We need her in our canon of fantasy. She deserves to be there. I'm glad she's there. I'm glad Julius is there. I'm glad Jamal is there. I'm glad Miss Leola is there. Like, I am glad that Wings of Ebony and Ashes of Gold exists. Wax poetic about it, right? But my favorite fantasy series that I will reread, when I say reread, let me be clear. I will finish it. I will hear the old man on Audible say, "Thank you for listening to Audible." And then I will press play and it will say chapter 1. That's what I mean when I say replay. And Shay is nodding because she can certify. On any given day, especially when I'm feeling upset, she'll be like, "So you just listen to Everything Saga?" Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Like, that is my favorite fantasy series. It is. And Forthright is as indie as the day is long. She is. And I have no hate in my heart for that woman. I just appreciate her so very much. That is my favorite fantasy series. I have listened to every single book in that fantasy series multiple times. I can say the words along with them. I love Alexandria House. I have listened to most of her books. I've listened to, I think, all of her full-length novels and like half of her novellas, right? Like, I love her stuff. And we spoke about in the last episode when it comes to like, oh, like I'm tired of the romance breaking up at the end of the second act or whatever. And I said Alexandria House doesn't do that. When I think of the books that I'm like, so-and-so doesn't do this, or this language is just, wow, I don't see that a lot in trad pub. The things that I love the most didn't come from trad pub. They came from good writers who decided to take a different avenue to their dream because the avenue wasn't important. The dream was. If you have something that you need to say, then saying it through this rich white man's pocket or saying it on your own dime, who cares? Whatever is best for you, whatever is best for your story, say that. And thinking about it that way completely changed my mind from being, well, that, and plus being like, you know, I don't have it, but God will give me the increase if he wants me to go this way, right? Like, think about the stories that you love best, which may also mean if you're uncomfortable, like I was uncomfortable with self-pub, read more indie books. Because I was like, oh my gosh, no, indie means you failed. Like, indie is basically saying that like you had to go like the remedial way because no one who was worth anything really likes your stuff. And then I started reading some indie people, and half the time I didn't even realize that they were indie, like, because I read them on Audible or Script and it didn't say this author is traditionally published. Like, it's just out there. So that's the other thing. No one's tagging your work trad or indie. But I listened to more indie stuff and I was like, wow, I haven't seen a fantasy do that. And ... Like, I just haven't seen a fantasy do that. I haven't seen a romance take this direction. I haven't seen this representation, right? All these things that I say I haven't seen, I'm seeing them in indie. And that was what made me feel okay to be indie, is because this negative film that, and I'll speak for myself, that I had over my eyes about what trad was versus what indie was, disappeared because I just read more. And so sometimes if you feel a way, if you feel an internal sort of bias or whatever to trad or indie, read more indie books and just see all the cool stuff that people are doing, because they don't have to be accountable to anyone. Are they rich? I don't know, but I know that they're happier than they would be if they had to keep morphing their work to make someone else happy. Someone else who's going to get paid for their work anyway. That's me.
Clicking all the wrong buttons. All the wrong buttons. All the wrong buttons. I was gonna say, so it was a couple of things for me. Business major, so I always knew I was gonna do both. Like, I was gonna try trad, I was gonna do indie, because my brain was like, I gotta see what I can do in both avenues. So I knew that was always a thing for me. What solidified that and then opened the door to maybe I won't even try trad was when I saw that there was a trad published author who had 2 books, one that just came out in January, one that had been out for like 8 years. And in less than the month of January, right, those 2 books had made that person $1 million in sales. Because they were traditionally published, they didn't get $1 million. Now with indie, they would have got a little less, right? Because you still got to pay Amazon and blah, blah, blah. But like, right, you would have got a lot closer to that. And here's the thing, while y'all know your girl hates capitalism, I would much rather myself have that money than a corporation have that money. Because the truth of the matter is, I'm gonna be blessing people left and right. Scholarship. You go to college, you go to college, you go to college. Because I don't need $1 million. I don't. But who also don't need $1 million? Penguin Random House. Like, they don't. You don't.
And let's not forget that $1 million that is from your intellectual property that you're not getting all of. They are using that money that you make them to give white authors more money than you.
Right, because the other thing is like that one of those books was 8 years old. So like you've already made everything you put into that book 8 years ago to make it happen. And for me, I love math too much to realize the math ain't mathing, okay? It don't make sense. I'm not in the business of trying to make other people rich. Like, if I'm being really honest. If I'm being really, really honest. I'm just not. And yeah, that was kind of like it. When I saw that, I was just like, huh. This is a lot. This is very interesting.
Yeah. There were definitely some books that I was like, I feel like I'm gonna have to indie that, or I could be I might be able to trad pub that. Like, there are definitely some places where I saw that there would need to be a hybrid approach anyway. So that's the other thing. Like, maybe you do trad, and then there are some books that are like, you might have to put that through an indie publisher. But by that point, you have the connections, you have the capital, like
which is always my thought. That was always my thought. Trad pub just long enough to where I get 2, 3, maybe 4 books out. And then after that, do it all myself. Because by then, they're out there, right? You'll find it in the bookstore. And if you find the 4 that are in the bookstores, then you might look up my name and see the other ones that are on Amazon. Like, thought process, right? But then Alexandria House did an exclusive deal with Audible. And I said, okay, God, I see what you do for others.
Amen.
I see. Because here's the thing. An exclusive, this indie author has an exclusive to where like the book can't even be in print. It's only available on Audible for like the first 3 months.
Yep. It's an entire series, not even just one book, an entire series.
Right. So tell me again what indie can't do, right? Like,
because it's all a business. If you believe in your writing, then do it.
Right.
If you believe in your writing, then do it. And if in the same way that you network with trad pub authors and agents at these different conferences, you better start networking with some indie ones, because if they're going to do anything, they are going to push each other.
I cannot wait to do a book tour. Like, I can't wait to like road trip it out with my books and go to like half price books around the country, go to like little, but like, I can't wait to make that a thing. And it's like, I want to do that. One, because I want to see all 50 states. I haven't, so I want to. So that's the first thing, right? But also, like, I realize that I'm going to have to put in work. And the truth of the matter is, that's what a lot of older traditionally published authors used to do. They used to go and do book tours on their own money and go across the country to bookstores and read and talk and all these different things, right? To me, that's part of my author dream. That's part of my like author things that I want to do. And I understand that like indie publishing, like that gives me the ability to want to do that even more, right? That gives me the, man, get out there and really make it, like, it excites me.
I'm tired already. Listen, it's not for everyone. But if it's not for you, network. I have seen so many different, I've seen Alexandria House shout out so many different other Black indie romance writers on her Instagram. Like, they will big up each other. So, you know, don't just sow your seeds in the trad pub garden. Sow your seeds across the board. Where can you find other indie horror writers? Where can you find other indie crime writers of color? Where can you find other indie fantasy writers? Like, where are they? And talk to them, get to know them. Who is their publisher? Who formats their books for them? How do they, like, all the different things, taxes, like everything that we know about trad pub, because it's so in front of us. Go and find that stuff for indie. And maybe demystifying the process will make it seem more attainable. And thereby every no you get from a query just gives you information. Okay, so you weren't willing to go down that road with me. I'm gonna try this many more, and then I'm gonna turn in a different direction. And again, like Shay said at the beginning, check yourself. Like, and Brittany Lewis has said it on her Instagram too. Don't be too arrogant to grow. All of us can learn something from writing. I have craft books in there that I have only read chapters of. I have not read cover to cover. So there's clearly more that I can do. Once I read it, I have to process it. I have to internalize it. I have to figure out how to put that on the page, right? I know that my books can be so much better. So there's also that. Sometimes, whether it's trad or indie, you do just need to close the workshop doors with you inside, hunker down and learn, hunker down and grow, hunker down and start over. Like, sometimes that is what it needs. Hashtag first fantasy could use some more work. I just am not in a position to do it right now. But where it was 2 years ago, it is far and away a different book for the better than it was then. But I wanted an agent a year ago. But I'm saying now, yeah, the book could still use some work. Right. So there's also we want these dreams now, but I want my dream when I'm ready for it. I want my dream when I'm prepared to live in it fully and not with anxiety that like, oh, I'm not ready. I don't know if it's good enough. Like, I want to know, please. I worked on that book for hundreds of hours. I rewrote it 17 times. I know every character's arc backward and forward. There is no amount of work that I didn't do. Even if I didn't want to do it, I did it. It's done, and the book stands on its own, right? Like, so that it's just a very complex journey. But being honest with yourself and being humble, foundational.
And the truth is, just even outside of craft books, writing that second story can help you write a better revision on that first story, right?
Absolutely.
Like, the more you write, the better you get, right? Like, even thinking about, I haven't queried, but the stories I wrote at the beginning of 2020 to what I'm writing now in 2022, exponential in the amount of growth as a writer, right? So you don't have to get rejections to learn to grow as a writer. Again, I'm gonna beat the CP horse until it's dead, no lie. Like, it helps, right? Like, and y'all know Dejana, Becca, Britt, like, I have multiple CPs. I have multiple people that read my work. Like, it's not just a me and Britt thing. I have multiple people who will like look at this and give me a different perspective. One of the best things about having multiple CPs, especially for me with Becca, is Becca is indie published. Becca does her own audiobooks. Becca formats her own things. So when I have questions, I have somebody to go to, right? So don't also, we said this and I'll drop the video in there. Your CP should have and be able to do things that you can't do. They should have skills in areas that you don't have.
Right.
Right. So like, yeah, I want to traditionally publish. Britt wants to traditionally publish. Dejana wants to traditionally publish. But Becca's indie.
Mm-hmm.
Britt and Dejana are open to indie. Writing requires multifacetedness, like, period. Like, it just does. It requires you to have and be able to maneuver and do multiple things. And so I feel like as we get ready to like wind this down and get through this, like, things to keep in mind. Your mindset, your perspective as you're going into these query trenches, as you're going into writing, period, honestly. Right? Like, if you get your mind right as you start to write that idea, as that idea starts to grow legs and become the novel, novella, series, trilogy, whatever, you'll already be good by the time you get to the query trenches, right? Realizing that, yes, this is a solitary thing. This is something that you walk through alone, but you don't have to be lonely in this writing journey. That's what CPs are for. That's what the writing community is for. We talk about the toxicity of bookish Twitter and writing Twitter, but like you can still find some amazing people there.
You can.
You'll still find some amazing conversations going on, like this one that started this conversation that we're having, right? There's a difference between giving up on your dream and giving up on the avenue to that dream, right? They're not the same things. I feel like, were there other ones? Well, I feel like there were like two more, I feel like, but I can't think of what the other 2 points were. I feel like
maybe network in the indie realm and read more indie books to demystify what self-publishing is, and to assure yourself that there is quality writing going on in that quadrant.
That part.
But you got pretty much everything. Yeah. This definitely has been growth, because this is not a conversation we could have had in season 1. Because I would not have been like, I would have been like, no, I just don't want to do indie, the end. I don't even know that would have been like right, but Alexandra House or Forthright, even though I was reading them last year, but I hadn't yet come to the point where I was appreciating their art as something that could be exemplary for me. It was just like, wow, this is so amazing. Anyway.
No, so here's the truth.
Now.
Here's the truth. The first time I wanted to bring it up to you was in the summer after the We Need Diverse Books thing happened. And you remember the conversation we had. Just think back on it, because I won't, it's mixed company. Sure. So just think back on it in that time frame. I wanted to bring it up because you were like, I'm done. And I was like, nah. But I knew you, and I knew you weren't going to hear nothing I had to say. Okay. So like, if she thinks back, for the last 6 months, I've slowly
been working me up to this. I don't like feeling handled.
In the last, like, you know, you got to know your friends. Like, you know, Tuesday, I was like, know yourself, know your friends too. Like, and the truth is we both know each other very well, right? Yes. So like, she'll know when something is wrong with me and I won't even say anything. And it'll be like, what's going on? Da-da-da. So, right, like, so you know. But also, like, I know my CP. I know the story she wants to tell. I know how she wants to tell them. I knew Trad Pub is not always the way for the stories you want to tell and what you want to tell them, right? But I also know my CP is like, that's a lot of work and I'm not into it. I'm not feeling it. That's it. It's a no for me. You know, but 6 months later, here we are.
6 months later, I am looking to God for the increase. Amen. And amen. That really is it. Also, just want to plug this book again. My other CP wrote this book. It's published by Neon Hemlock. Does she have an agent? No. But she has a whole novella in the world that is giving me life. And this is how to stay alive. It's so good.
Cover. I love that cover.
Isn't it so beautiful? I feel like we have the same hairstyle, me and this girl. I have spring locks. I feel like she has spring locks right now.
Oh, wow. I can see it. I couldn't see it like where it was before. But yeah, I can see that.
Loving it. So all of which to say, and I have learned this too, you got to read more. Like from different quadrants. Like I'm reading this book right now, so many, 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, which is edited by Ellen O and Elise Chapman. And it's like Asian mythology retellings or whatever. The writing is beautiful. Oh, the writing is beautiful. I'm like, you gotta read more. You gotta read more. And if you don't have a lot of time to read, then just like choose from different places. Read a track book 1 month, an indie the next, something from a different culture the next. Like you don't have to read a lot.
Right.
To read a lot.
Right. You don't have to constantly be reading 5 books at one time.
Right. To be reading a lot. You just got to be strategic with where the books are coming from.
Here's when we say audiobooks are books.
Please.
Listening to audiobooks is reading.
No, that's how I read most of my indie books. Is I find them on Scribd.
Majority of my books, period, I read through audiobooks.
I mean, we know that's a fact for me.
Right. And you know, again, productivity mindset, I'm trying to get out of it, but still,
I want to be laying down when listening to a story. It's not even about me being able to do 1,000 things. I do not want to have to sit down with my eyes open and turn this page. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah. See, and that's not me. I'm like, you could be listening to this book and washing dishes. That's always.
I mean, sometimes I do want to, but other times I literally
yeah, no, I get it. I'm saying like my brain don't even want to be like, nah, just listen. I can't even just sit and listen to the audio book. My brain is like, nah, you need to get up and do something.
Not at all.
You need to do something. It's toxic, y'all.
Toxic. When I am down, I am down.
Toxic. It's awful. It's awful. All right, y'all. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate y'all being here for these premieres. We're doing season 2 a little differently, and so it's been great to be in the chat, interacting with y'all live. Pretty sure y'all got quite a few giggles and whatnot. So we will see y'all next month, April, on Brit's channel. I'm hoping that this will end up pointing to the right direction on Brit's channel. So thank you guys so much, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day.